Welcome to Hat Tips with Hornskov. Today I'll get into a topic I get questions about all the time. How did I become a hat maker, and what can you do to get started yourself? People always seem to think that this craft is something that needs to have been passed down through generations, and that I must come from a family of hat makers carrying on the family tradition. And while that may be true for some hat makers out there, it's not the case for me. And I'm pretty sure that it isn't for most hatters out there either. At least not the ones I know. No, my father has been many things, but he was never a hat maker. Something I did get from him though was the urge to try new things. Now I'm a firm believer that you can do and become anything you want to with the right motivation and the drive to carry you. I think that's one of the most important things that my parents gave to me. I've always been curious and I've had 1,000 ideas about different things that I wanted to do. Now, hat making became my profession because at the time I started making hats, I had just met Catherine, my partner in everything I do here in life, and she's also the one behind the camera right now. She knew how to keep me in check and keep me focused on one thing at a time. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be making hats. I would probably be doing a million other different things. But how did I get into hats? I've always been a hat guy, ever since watching movies like Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, and Zorro as a kid. I think I was drawn by the fact that with a hat you could become anyone. However, it wasn't until a friend of mine showed me a video of a hat maker making a hat that my obsession truly began. I really didn't know that this was something you could do, and I thought to myself, if this guy can do it, so can I. And so I started spending nearly every hour of every day watching videos on how to make hats. And there weren't really as many videos as there is today, so the few that I could find, I would watch on repeat. I then made my first few attempts at hat making that were truly awful, but when I posted photos of it on Instagram, people that I didn't know would message me to ask if I could make hats for them. And that's what led me to create a crowdfunding campaign that ended up kickstarting my obsession for hats into the business that we have today. Now, there were many challenges along the way, but the main challenge was gaining the know-how, as hat making had been a dying craft for many years, so very few people actually knew how to make a proper hat from start to finish, and they weren't really too happy about sharing that knowledge. I've now spent the better part of 8 years learning and perfecting the craft, picking up bits and pieces of information here and there. Now, to begin with, I would take vintage hats apart to see how they were made. Reverse engineering a 100-year-old hat reveals a lot of secrets. Now, finding the right equipment and materials was another challenge in itself. I found this old hat stretcher that I would actually use to block all of my hats on in the beginning. And getting in with big suppliers also proved to be very difficult. So to begin with, I would just use the material that I could find, where I could buy one piece of felt at a time. It's very different now, however, compared to when I first started out. Materials and tools are a lot easier to find. A lot of new suppliers and vendors have popped up. And there's a lot more video material and tutorials online on how to make hats. So if this is something that you're passionate about, there's really no better time than now to get started. Now, we get a lot of questions about how to get started, where to buy materials and where to get equipment. We also get a lot of requests for hat making classes and workshops. And this is actually something we've been discussing for a while now. We're hoping to do both an online course and a build your own hat workshop. If not this year, then hopefully next year. If this is something that you want to be first in line for, make sure to sign up to our mailing list. That was it for today's episode. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found it useful. I'll be back next week with another hat tip.